Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 92 of ATL Falcons UK show. We have our first group therapy session of the season, and I'm glad that we're getting it in nice and early in the season. Game week 1, and we're already on it. We have a full party tonight, so I've got Liam, Mark, and Cal, and we will also be joined by an Eagles fan later on in the show to preview that game. But first things first, boys, we're 0-1. I'm going to ask you for your little breakdown. So go on, Liam, enlighten us. Where did it all go wrong?
Sort of roundabout when we sort of stepped out onto the field. That was no. I think we started off okay, actually. I mean, I won't say it went wrong really until the second half. I'll give them that. I thought the first half was all right. In the main, no, I think we defended well throughout the game, but yeah, I just think we struggled to adapt to what was in front of us. And I think that's the main challenge here. Particularly we have the players to compete or to beat teams like the Steelers, really. But what we had in front of us was a tough situation, and from what I saw, and without really a technical view on it, what I saw was we just didn't change anything up, try something different, and just kind of we just kind of let it happen to us almost a little bit. And we could have, not to say we could have made some radical decisions, but I just would have liked to see us try something a little bit different in that second half to try and get a little bit more movement of the ball, when I felt like we just sort of continued to try the same things again and again and again, hoping that we had the personnel to pull it off, which I can understand that people might believe we do, but I could also understand that that's one of, if not the best D-lines we're going to face this season. And we did very, very little to stop it. And I know it's easier said than done stopping it, obviously.
Yeah.
A lot of teams will find that out all season, but ultimately you've got to stop their sort of like number one threat, or at least manage it, and we did not manage it at all. We got absolutely battered on that line of scrimmage on that side of the ball.
Without a doubt. I mean, that was pretty concise. That could have been much, much worse. So I'll take that for now before we dip into everything else. Go on, Mark, give us your 2 pence and then we'll tie it all together.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I tend to be more optimistic than Liam, but I guess I guess one of the things that stood out for me, I completely agree with Liam, by the way. I think the lack of adjustment in the second half was concerning. I don't know if Zach Robinson was just like Liam said, we kind of confident in the players we got on the field. I think the big thing for me, I think the Steelers D-line was a problem. But I think that Caleb McGarry might as well have been TJ Watt's matador at one point, because it was just every play, or certainly it felt like that watching it. And I think the one thing that I took out of it was, and that's why I thought the name of this show was quite apt, TJ Watt was completely the difference. Yes, their whole D-line causes problems, but I just it just felt like every play. And there were quite a few plays that I noticed. I think there's probably about 5 to 6 that stuck in memory, where he was getting to him as Kirk was throwing the ball, like mid-throw, right? So actually, when we break that down, and like I say, there's only, there are a few that sort of stick in my mind. You kind of go, well, if McGarry had just been able to hold him for another second, 2 seconds max, right? Then actually we might have been able to give Kirk the time he needed. I think that the general game plan for me trusted a bit too much in we've got the guys to make the plays. I think it was quite obvious Kirk was rusty. And let's face it, he was rusty because he's been out for over a year. I'm still not having it of, why didn't we give him 4 or 5 pointless preseason snaps. Sorry, Liam, I'll argue that with you until the end of it. Because he's obviously trying to still protect that Achilles a little bit. I think that's quite obvious, and potentially why we didn't see anything major change in the second half. I think that might have been a bit of a request from Kirk's side of things. Now, that's not good, because if he's not fully fit, I mean, okay, you wouldn't have wanted Penix out there taking the same hits that Kirk did. But at the same time, he probably would have been able to have a little bit more mobility coming out the pocket. Now, I'd like to caveat this. I'm not screaming for Penix, not at all. But what I am saying is that we need to be really, really conscious here that we've paid this money for Kirk. We knew he was coming off an injury. I do think the game plan might have suggested that Achilles is being protected slightly. But I think on the whole, there were things in this game that really, really made me feel not so worried as I was probably straight at the game last night. So it was I'm glad I've slept on it.
Yeah. This would have been a different show this time last night. Right, go on, Cal, give us your bit and then we'll tie it in.
Well, we actually started off really well for once. I think everyone got excited on that first drive. You take the 3 points, we got down the field really well. And then after that, it sort of just spiraled out of control, especially the second half. I think I missed the second quarter anyway. I was stuck in traffic.
Lovely.
So I didn't miss much anyway. But I think a big shout out to the defense to allow 18 points. Well, you'd say 15 because obviously Kirk threw an interception. They scored 3 off it, but no touchdowns. I'm not saying they're the best offense we'll play. We're definitely not. But the defense did their job, and that's all you could ask from them. But the offense, like Mark said, it looked very rusty. Kirk looked very rusty. I don't want to be too negative. I think the fan base has blew up already. Like it does every single year, and I'm not. It's week 1. Things will change. They will get better, but we'll just have to see. There's definitely positives from obviously the defense, especially, but Bijan making quite a few runs. He's just got to find them a couple of gaps. But like you say, you're playing one of the best defenses you'll play all year, and he still made a bit of a dent in them. But it's just the O-line, obviously, that was the biggest problem in the whole game, especially with McGarry, and then Pitts. Basically pointless being in that position at times, absolutely pointless. I think you needed someone else there. You could put the other tight end there to double team Watts, because obviously everyone knows he was the biggest problem and caused us most issues.
Yeah.
And just to add on, because I think Cal makes a great point there. 3 of those field goals were over 50-yard field goals. So if we can just put that into some perspective for a second, right? And Boswell's a great kicker, right? Is absolutely, no doubt about that. But we have to remember that's 6. Sorry, my maths eluded me there for a second. That's 9 points that they scored from the logo.
Yeah.
Right. So really, as much as it infuriated me that Arthur Smith managed to get one over on us, Arthur Smith's offense didn't score a point.
No, literally not a point. And you swap that kicker out for 75% of the other kickers in the league, if not more. Easy. You're getting 1, maybe 2 at a push.
No, yeah, and we've got to be careful that we're not making excuses, right? Because we've suffered awful red zone competency for quite some time, right? I just want to put that into some perspective, though, that where we didn't do enough on offense. Like, good Lord, lads! I mean, I'm at least happy that we managed to score from outside the kick, outside of our kicker, which ironically in past years, how much have we relied on Koo under Arthur Smith? So I just wanted to point that out because I think it's really, really easy at this point to go, Kirk was meant to be a TD machine. We were meant to score, 5 touchdowns a game. And yeah, there should be an expectation that we should score more. But
yeah,
I just think it's worth pointing out that it wasn't. It certainly wasn't a defeat that was because we were a poor team across all three units.
No, of course not. I'm just going to jump in the comments real fast before anyone picks back up. Paul here, as always, football is sort of back. I kind of agree with that. There is some football back. And Ben, thank you for joining us, as always, as well. Right, let's delve a little deeper in then. So I do want to speak about Cousins, but I don't think it's the route that everybody's going for. I don't think he's carrying a physical injury still. I think he's purely cautious. I don't think that he'll be feeling any less fresh physically than he ever has done at this point. But I just think that in there, expecting those first few big hits, there is no way that doesn't leave some scarring on you. And I think that's where the hesitation comes from. I don't think the rustiness is physical. I think it's like self-doubt almost, or like precaution thinking, don't let myself get hit, which is why we saw him throw 2, if not 3, horrendous balls on first and second downs into absolute traffic jams when, like we've all said all night long, look out, just ping it out. It doesn't matter. It's completely irrelevant, and it wouldn't have mattered, because that doesn't show to me a physical issue. That shows I don't know what to do. Let's just get rid of it so no one can come near me. And that's how I felt watching him last night.
Yeah. I mean, he did say, didn't he, that whatever point it was for the game, that I think he said he can't wait to get hit for the first time. That was his words. Obviously, nobody really actually means that. But
he must be ecstatic after last night.
He's so happy. That's why he held on to the ball so long. But I think there was part of that, maybe a little bit of wariness, but obviously, because he's not really had that many injuries in his time, not ones of that length anyway, of that nature. So there's always a bit of wariness. But I do think, I don't think Kirk Cousins can't be a man worried about getting hit, in the sense of he's been hit so many times, that man, that he's well used to that one now. Obviously, he's never had a hit like that that's caused that kind of damage, but he's still had plenty of hits over his career. But I think one thing for me, I think probably stood out with some of those throws that he made, certainly some of the poor decision throws, was, I think, in a new team, in a home game where you've been at one team for however many years, he's been out at 8 years, whatever it was, and you got your star in front of your home fans. What do you want to do? You want to impress them, and Kirk Cousins is a gunslinger anyway. He likes to throw the ball, and he will throw the ball into tight windows at the best of times. Doesn't normally make decisions like that, but he's not afraid to throw the ball, and he never ever has been. But I think a little bit was, he wanted it a little bit too much at times, and I think going through this season, I think he probably will settle down a little bit and go back to more of his more rhythm style passing. Because like they said, I think it's even in the commentary they said it, he's very much a rhythm passer.
Yeah.
Like when he's out of rhythm, he doesn't look very good, and he hasn't looked very good throughout his career. But when he's in a rhythm, he's up there with the best. Like, he's very, very hard to stop, because he just has so much confidence in his own ability, and he just makes sharp, fast decisions that are just on point every time. And obviously the Steelers never let him get in that rhythm. That was probably their game plan from the start. Don't let Cousins get in a rhythm, and they executed it very well.
Very well.
And I think he just rushed a few where he went, he just thought, I reckon, if that was a Vikings uniform, he wouldn't have thrown some of those balls. And I don't think he'll throw some of those balls in future games for us. But he just went for a little bit too much, tried to make a throw that maybe just wasn't quite there, and he'll know that. Like, he'll know that that's not his game. And I think he will settle, but obviously he's going to need a little bit more time. And people like McGarry, yes, he's not going to cope up against a matchup like TJ Watt again this season, because there isn't really anybody quite like that, really, is there? Because it was, he must be coming out thinking like, what the hell was going on there, because he was making a mockery out of him at times, wasn't he, really? Because he kept, like Mark said, he kept trying to, he wanted to chip him to the outside, and he kept running round him because his speed was too much.
Yeah.
And then on occasions when he compensated for that outside route and almost did a leap to the side to block the outside, TJ Watt after he went up the middle because he knew that he baited him into it and then just went straight through the middle. I was like, I felt for McGarry because like obviously it's a ridiculously hard matchup, but I would have liked to see something different, like put double team him, put somebody else out there, just do something, just maybe cause him, and maybe he would have dominated anybody out there. Like that's could have been the mood he was in. But I just would like to see somebody like just try something, do something, but get Stormy out there and see what happens.
I mean, and I'm just conscious of time because I know I've got our guest coming in a second. But I think it's worth. It's certainly worth mentioning that it actually at the beginning it actually did feel like Kirk was getting into a little bit of a rhythm. And he was making some throws, right? And again, towards the end, I mean, my lord, I said this in the group. I'll say it because I think it's a good joke. I thought he'd had an Achilles transplant from Desmond Ridder, right? So I'm not concerned, and I think just a segue of saying, I think one thing that we're all kind of aligned on, boys, right? It's not going to get any easier. We've got Eagles next, and then we've got the Chiefs after that, and actually. It's almost, I'm not going to say it's ideal, but actually there's zero expectation, I think, realistically going into these games, right? So work out your problems now, make your adjustments and fix them, right? And I'm sure Liam, who's going to come and join us from British and Irish Eagles, will probably disagree with me, but both of those teams don't have a threat like TJ Watt on the outside. So I do think we I mean, don't get me wrong, they've got their own weapons. We've got Jalen Carter coming up. We've got Chris Jones coming up. We've got some really, really unreal defensive linemen coming up, but actually just none that operate like TJ Watt. And I'm not placing it all on the O-line. I don't think the O-line had the best job, but again, it's a new scheme, right? We've got to let this stuff bed in, and if it doesn't, then we can sit here at game 10 and go, well, this has been awful. But I think it's just worth noting, as Liam alluded to, just change it. Just change it. What we haven't
absolutely
got anything to lose.
On that note, we will bring in our guest. I have got a comment I want to pop up because when we get the chance, I'm going to circle back around to this. So there was a play yesterday where Pitts wasn't on the line. And then he was asked to get on the line, and then he moved towards the line, but he wasn't on the line, and it still resulted in a flag. And there's no way we can not talk about that. So we will come back to that later on. However, we will use that opportunity from Mark then to segue over to Liam, who we are now going to tag in. And I am actually, just for screen purposes, going to tag myself out for a little bit so it doesn't look quite like this because it's a little bit messy. So, Mark, host away, my friend.
Wow, I felt like I was in the office there. I've definitely left myself on mute.
I was about to say it.
Hi, Liam. Thank you very much for joining us. How's it going?
Yeah, gents, very good. Thanks very much for having me in. Your usual host obviously didn't want to hear what I had to say. Maybe he's scared for next week.
We all are.
To be fair, Danny's just ignorant like that. Don't worry about it. He'll be sitting in.
What's your tongue?
I knew he was going to do that. Liam, thanks very much for joining us. Obviously, Eagles coming off 1-0 start to the season against the Packers. So how does seeing Kirk Cousins flailing around the pocket, running away from TJ Watt, how does that affect your thinking for how next week's going to go?
Yeah, it's interesting. The Eagles had an up and down game, and you might look at the result and say, okay, hang on, the Green Bay Packers were a top 5, top 8 ranked team going into this year. Both teams had 10-hour flights playing down in Sao Paulo in Brazil. The turf was atrocious. I don't know if you guys heard about it, but it was shocking. Really, really bad. I'm surprised there weren't more injuries, actually, off the back of that game. It was like watching Washington and New York play in their stadiums in the NFC
yeah.
as well. It was pretty awful. Going to the Kirk Cousins comment. I mean, Kirk Cousins has played like the best quarterback in the league in the past, and he's played like, you know, a QB 24 or QB 25 before. So it's hard to predict what Kirk Cousins you're going to get. I do think over his career, he's been much better than he's been worse. And I think with the weapons you guys have for him to throw the ball to, you're going to be a danger to anyone this year, as long as the O-line can stand up. I did hear your comment before I joined about TJ Watt. I must go back and try and find the WhatsApp message you sent to me yesterday, Mark, which described TJ
Like a
Watt.
matador.
Yeah, he's like a matador. Yeah, for your right tackle. TJ Watt, he's not human. I'm not sure he
No.
comes from this planet. And I just want to address your point before I joined, which was we don't have anyone like that, and we don't. I mean, if Hassan Reddick was still here, then I would have said, look, you know, you really need to worry about him. The probably the two weakest positions that or the same position group for us this week just come by was our edge. Nolan Smith, when he got on the field, did nothing, and he hasn't done much since we drafted him. To be honest, there's a lot of improvement required from Nolan Smith this year. Brandon Graham is 35, 36 now. It's his last year. He said it's his last year. He's actually looked pretty good, but again, it's Brandon Graham. He's not going to be on the field very long. Yeah. Bryce Huff was our big off-season acquisition from the Jets, almost swapping him for Reddick, but I'm sure you guys have seen the news about Reddick at the moment.
Yeah, now he already wants to go, right?
Exactly. And he did nothing, albeit he played a very low percentage of snaps compared to what we thought. And Josh Sweat is an enigma because before the last 6-7 games of last year, there was a 16-17 game span where he was leading the league in sacks. Yeah. And then like the rest of the Eagles team at the back end of last year, he just fell off. So I think the edge and the pass rush will be better against the Falcons than what we saw. I don't think the turf helped. Certainly didn't help both teams' edge or bull rush from the defensive tackle position. However, I think you've got a better offensive line than the Packers do, certainly on paper. So who knows? I think it could be where the match is won and lost, to be honest, because if we give time for Kirk to rip us open, our secondary is still pretty new. There's a lot of young people there. CJ Gardner-Johnson's coming back. He looked really rusty at safety this weekend, just come by. We're very susceptible to being carved open. So if we can't get to Kirk, then I think that could be an issue for the Birds. Albeit, I'm not as concerned as I was going into playing the Packers. I do think the Eagles are strong favorites going into this game.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the probably the one player that has got the potential to be dangerous to us. And most of our fans over in Atlanta will probably hate me for mentioning his name because, of course, it's another one of the Georgia Bulldogs that we should have drafted but never do. Is Jalen Carter. Firstly, from me, because I only get a chance to see highlights these days. Jalen Carter is kind of a danger piece for me. Just before I ask you that, Liam. Question to our Liam, is there or Cal, is there anyone else on that Eagles roster that you feel is a bit of a danger?
I mean, on the defensive side of the ball, like I think there's probably, and obviously you've got a few young guys in that secondary. The main one, I mean, I would never ever count against like Darius Slay, or never like you just never ever would bet against him because he's just been doing it his whole career. And you think he's probably 34 now, 33, 34 now, something like that.
Yeah.
So he's a little bit obviously probably slowing down, but he's still a top class player.
Hasn't lost a yard this year certainly in preseason. Exactly. Everyone was expecting a big drop off on his pace, but he hasn't lost a yard.
He's just got bags of experience and ability that is just that seems to come back with him every single year. I didn't see too much of how the young guys did. I think Cooper DeJean play? Quinn Mitchell, did they both played some snaps in there?
Q played well. Q had a really good game. We were just doing our research for the podcast, which we're doing directly after I leave you guys, and I have the stats here. So he had 5 tackles, 1 solo tackle, but he had 2 passes defended. One was for a touchdown, and he had good speed to get back to force an incompletion, and the other one was a kind of like a deep ball, or that's what they wanted him to think. So they sent the receiver up to bring Q up there. He read it was an under a route crossing, and he read it and got back and broke up the ball. Q had a really strong game. More than I was expecting.
That's worrying signs for us. And then I really like let's get his first name, Reed Blankenship.
He had an interception.
He's a really good player. That's pretty much most of the secondary I've named there, which is what concerns me.
And CJ Gardner-Johnson, who can be a
I don't like to talk about him because there's no player in the NFL that I would like to beat more than him. After how many scraps we must have had with him at the Saints and things like that, because he is one nasty little character. Probably great to have a team, awful to play against.
That's a very fair assessment.
Yeah, but yeah, that's worrying. And obviously on the other side of the ball, Jalen Hurts can be an enigma, but is a threat in multiple ways. And he's gonna bring it. And obviously a receiving core that I think is actually quite strong. They picked up dots. I don't think he actually did anything.
Didn't have a target in the game. No,
but I thought he was a decent acquisition. He's somebody who's obviously kind of disappointed in his career so far. In terms of in Washington, he wasn't very good for a first round pick, but I actually think he's pretty solid player overall. And then there was the AJ Brown, and one of my homeboys, Devontae Smith. That's quite a duo. That's they caused me a few nightmares. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just talk on the offensive side of the ball, and I'll answer your question about Breadman, Jalen Carter, Mark. So the offense had a day. I mean, Jalen Hurts had 2 dodgy interception throws, but then had 2 like perfectly placed in stride, amazing touchdown throws. I'm less concerned about Hurts than some of the fan base. I mean, the Eagles fan base just love to cry as soon as anything happens. It's part of our nature. Like a lot of
You're in the right place for group therapy.
Yeah, we know that one.
So I'm not too concerned about Jalen Hurts. He'll either have an amazing day or he'll have an average day. He's never going to have a terrible day just by his dual threat ability. Saquon Barkley.
Oh God.
I mean, like he looks faster. He looks as quick as he did when he came out of college. He looks like he's got over that injury, which obviously took a couple of years. His cuts on this weekend, like the whole sideline was just like, wow. Like it was. If he stays healthy, the Eagles are going to be a real force this year. Because when you look at AJ Brown, you look at Devontae Smith is just a blanket. Anytime you need someone to catch the ball, you just throw it his way and he's going to catch it. Like he's like Zach Ertz when we were going for our Super Bowl years ago. Jalen Hurts trusts him so much. AJ Brown is going to be boom or bust. He's going to get you 40 yards or he's going to get you 180 yards depending on the game. Dallas Goedert is a really underrated tight end, but he's probably also massively underperformed compared to his potential as well over the last few years. Injuries haven't helped that. Again, he's pretty safe. He does look a little step faster again this year. So and our offensive line, which we were really worried about with Jason Kelsey going, Jurgen stepped in one of the first plays. He fumbled a snap and we lost the ball, but he was solid for the rest of the game. Looked like he got quite a bit of zip coming out to the second level for the running offense. And Mekhi Becton was probably our biggest concern coming into this year, our right guard, who we picked up. And he had an incredible game. He probably played one of the best on the offensive line this weekend just gone by. There's a few reels out there on X about it at the moment. So if we've solved that problem, then I think most of our concerns around the offensive line are going to be okay. Yeah. So look, they're threats, right? But as I said earlier, I think this secondary is young, it's immature, it's not that experienced apart from Slay. It can be boom or bust with CJ Gardner-Johnson. Ghost has a really high floor. Ghost is Reed Blankenship. Sorry, Ghost has a really high floor, but his ceiling isn't very high either. he's just a solid player. Getting to the question of Breadman, right? So he had 2 penalties. We all know about questions about his character, what happened when he's coming out of the draft. One of the reasons why he fell as alongside the horrendous draft performance that was on TV, where it looked like he was moving about 3 miles an hour.
He was massively overweight as well, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean, he just wasn't in a good place, clearly, and thankfully he wasn't, because the Eagles wouldn't have picked him up where we did if he was. He even though he had those 2 penalties, he looked like a game wrecker. Like, he was getting double teamed and he was getting around them. I think Jalen Carter is going to have a huge year this year. I think he's our best player in the defensive line by a mile already. I think he's our best defender. He's his best player in defense. He's probably one of the top 3 players on our team, which is scary to say, considering this is his 2nd year already. He didn't have the production on the stat line at the weekend, but it was there. It was there in other ways. Like, he was roughing stuff up so other people could get the production. So I would agree, on our defensive side of the ball, Jalen Carter is your biggest worry. I'd agree with that.
He is. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Carl, any observations you want to talk through?
Running the ball with obviously Barkley coming in. Do you think will you be like run game, pass game? Will it be split? Are you completely sort of a split team? Because I think, like we thought when our first drive, we basically ran it a lot this week, and a lot of it was running on our side. And I just wondering what like your side would be mostly.
Yeah, I'm looking at the stat line just as you said that question, and it was pretty 50-50. I think there was 28 rushing plays and 38 rushing plays and 34 passing plays. So pretty close to 50-50. Interesting, Saquon carried the ball 24 times. I can't remember the last time an Eagles running back ran the ball 24 times. And look, I know the Eagles running back coach, Jamal Singleton. He's been on our podcast 3 times, and he's a friend of ours. And when he came on the podcast earlier this year, he's like, we didn't sign Saquon Barkley for a running back by committee. He didn't say that exactly, but he kind of alluded to it. He's a 3-down back. He's going to be on the field. So I'm looking at the stat right here. Jalen Hurts rushed the ball poorly, I will add. There was a lot of weird empty design shotgun plays where he ran the ball straight into like the defensive line, which didn't work. Yeah, that'll get worked out. It's a new scheme as well, right? 2 new coordinators, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. But I'm looking at the other running back. So we had Shipley, who was on the field a couple of times for some fake play, so he was like a decoy. And Kenny Gainwell ran the ball once for 2 yards. So it's the Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts show on the ground. You might see a pass catching down from Shipley out of the backfield next week. I'll be interested to see if that happens. In terms of the split, I think it's going to be pretty 50-50. I do think it will probably end up at the end of the year being somewhere around 60 passing, 40 rushing, just because of because the talent is, or maybe even 65, just because the talent there to receive the ball. And I'm not just talking about the receivers. I'm also talking about Barkley as well. So yeah, it's a really good question. One we've not really discussed on our podcast. It would be interesting to see. Would you say you guys are better against the run or the pass?
I don't know. I mean, I think from where I was looking, I think we limited the Steelers' offense certainly in the passing game. I mean, I can only really think of a couple of players against George Pickens, who I think is a severely, massively underrated receiver.
A big year.
So I think we did quite well on both sides. I did like it was certainly nice to start to see some actual pressure on a QB for once. It really felt like Judon and they were using a couple of guys on the other side, and we even seen a sack, which for Falcons fans, Liam is quite rare. So I think I guess my gut would probably say we're probably more astute against the run, but I don't know. I mean, I'm probably a little bit on the fence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would have said the run. I kind of want to say the run, but with the sort of the safety acquisitions, that's what's kind of made us definitely a bit more of a concern for teams with the past game. Teams could tend to obviously throw deep against us. Obviously, Jesse Bates added to that last year, but before that, we struggled in that safety group in particular. Now you'd look at previously you could have sort of looked at Richie Grant and gone, yeah, if I throw a little bit away from Bates and away from Terrell, not too worried. Now you wouldn't want to throw anywhere near Simmons or Bates or Terrell. That's 3 guys.
And I think that's
a few problems.
I think that's a really, really good point, because when you think about it, I think this weekend gone against the Steelers was probably really bad sample size, right? Because Justin Fields just didn't throw it that deep that often. So it say again?
Because he can't.
Because he can't.
Well, yes, no, that's very true. But
shout out to Bo Nix on that one while we're here.
It never really seemed to be part of their game plan, right? So I guess it's really difficult. And I think, not to try and pull positives out of thin air, but certainly one thing to notice is that I don't think Jalen Hurts will be as scared or inept as Justin Fields to give it a go and air it out.
He's got a good deep ball, Jalen Hurts, when he does throw it. One of his better attributes.
And I think this will probably be a better litmus test for how those 2 safeties and our secondary in completion is going to deal against that deep threat. So I'm hoping I'll be happy, Liam. But I've been wrong before.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I know, Mark, you're going to come and join us on our podcast later as well, so you can talk to some of the British and Irish Eagles guys. But I'm just interested, what you might have a prediction section, which is later, and you haven't done it already. But have you got any predictions for this coming, sadly, 24-13 to Philly by Paul Rhodes in the comments there?
Yeah. I've got plenty of them. Well, I said it at the beginning of the show, and I'm gonna let the chaps kind of give their view. But for me, I think we were all kind of like, hopefully we beat the Steelers, but then we've got to go play the Eagles, and then we've got to go play the Chiefs.
By the way, you cost me £1,200 by losing, right?
Yeah.
And the Falcons let me down.
CD Lamb cost me £450 last night. So, but I think that the thing that sticks out for me around all of this is now we've kind of got over the disappointment of that was yesterday. Well, we were expecting to probably lose these next 2 games anyway. So certainly from my point of view, I just kind of go, well, in which case, I'll be honest with you, at this point, lads, the pressure's off. So if you've got stuff that you need to work out, or if you've got schematic things that you need to try and run, well, just go and do them now, because I would rather you get them worked out in games that we're probably predicted to lose anyway. And then you never know, we might surprise some people. I'm certainly not going to say that we're going to win, but I am expecting some progress, and I'm praying for progress. So, Cal, anything from you on that?
Prediction wise, I think what you said about your defensive line, obviously it's still got players that can produce, but obviously playing TJ Watt this weekend was obviously a massive thing for us. But I feel like Kirk will have more time in the pocket, which will get downfield quicker. We will get down the field. So prediction wise, I might as well go for it. But I still think we'll lose, but I feel like it'll be 27-21. So it'll be a closer game than a lot of fans will think after that first game. But
it's hard to win in the NFL. I don't think these 2 teams are so far apart that I would say the Eagles are going to blow out. That's my cat need escaping, by the way, in case you're wondering what's going on.
Okay.
It's hard to win in the NFL. I mean, I don't think the Eagles are going to blow you guys out of the park. I think there's so many questions still for the Eagles to answer, although it was a good win. I think the defensive line should be fired up this week, because they're getting a lot of shit in the media this week, and rightly so, from not being very effective. So I think you can expect a bounce back for them. But again, I when I look at them stacked up against your offensive line, I think we're undermatched rather than we're overmatched in that regard against you guys.
You're very kind. You're very kind. Liam, Falcons, Liam, anything from you before we've got to let Eagles, Liam, go?
No, I think again, I think similar to what I said about the Steelers game, I think it's a game that we need to get ahead in. I'd like to sort of make Hurts chase the game. If it's a game where we're behind, you can lean on that run game quite heavy. Run Saquon, run Hurts, bring some of the guys in, and sort of manage the game there. I think our best chance is to try and get a lead and force Hurts to throw the ball to win the game, and maybe he'll make some sort of sloppy decisions, few interceptions, and that's where I think our best chance is. I think if we fall behind, it'll be very hard for us to chase that game because there's just too many options. Even just running Saquon alone is going to be incredibly hard to stop when you're trying to chase a game. But then obviously if you do need to throw the ball, if you do need to throw some play action in there, Jalen Hurts can take off. You've got AJ Brown and Devonta Smith who could just got range, speed, to basically just and obviously got as well at tight end who is a good possession catcher. So the key for us again, get ahead in the game. Is
Liam, I've got to go on his podcast next. I don't need him getting any cockier before I get on there.
I won't be. One thing I will say is, and this is coming from a slightly biased perspective because I'm an Eagles fan at heart. I do think Jalen Hurts is still underrated in the NFL. Like people forget this guy was on course for MVP and would have been Super Bowl MVP had we won the Super Bowl, and has had serious success. I do think there are some question marks sometimes around his decision making. We saw that this weekend. But the Jalen Hurts we saw in camp this year was a different Jalen Hurts to who we saw last year. The whole Eagles organization fell apart last year. Jalen Hurts didn't fall apart. The whole organization did, from coordinators down to all of the players and the coach. I'm expecting a big year from Jalen Hurts this year. I could absolutely be wrong. That's just based on what I've seen. And to be honest with you, if Jalen Hurts doesn't have a good year this year with this offensive line, with that receiving core, running back, tight end, very experienced coaches, Kellen Moore is coming up with a lot of trick plays, then I think any noise will be justly deserved around Jalen Hurts. But I'm not expecting that. And I would say ask Jalen Hurts to throw the ball at your peril because he's better than some people think.
I mean, Liam's an Alabama boy, so I'm sure there won't be any underestimation. And I'm a fan as well. Like I say, I think we've got to trust in the strengths that we've got, and I think right now the defense is absolutely that, which as a Falcons fan is almost Twilight Zone-ish to say out loud. So I guess it's. I think we're just at the point now where it's like, well, because we haven't got that much confidence we're going to win, then we just want to see what this team can actually do. So
let me leave you with something positive before I go. Eagles' second half against the rush was horrendous. We defended really badly against the rush. Your offensive line is pretty strong. Bijan Robinson could have a day, and if he does have a day, then we could be in trouble there.
Well, on that note, I mean, not a religious guy, but I'm going to go and say some prayers. Liam, thank you so much for joining us. For anybody in the chat who isn't aware, like I said at the beginning, it's British and Irish
so it's
Eagles.
At British Eagles on Twitter, but yeah, we're called the British and Irish Eagles. So it's at British Eagles on Twitter. If for whatever reason Atlanta Falcon fans want to come and see how the Birds are doing this year, please give us a follow, and happy to take all banter thrown our way for the upcoming game this week. We love it.
Thank you very much for joining us, mate. Really, really appreciate it. And I'll see you very, very soon.
Good luck next week, lads. Cheers.
Bye.
See ya.
Put me in, coach.
Look at that. Danny's off the bench and into the game.
Is it?
That was stunning, boys. I've been injury.
You've been injured.
Injury? What the fuck? Okay. One comment that I have to jump to, and it's going to make us sick because he was here all last week as well. Hi, mate. Thanks for coming back on again. Stunning. Lovely. Lovely stuff.
It must have been. Listen, it must have been really good for him.
Must be.
Sit and watch 0 touchdowns. Like,
Exactly. Exactly.
Sorry,
Man, that was
Steelers
stunning,
Nation
boys.
Australia. I wasn't here last week. These lads might not bite, but I will. So,
what time did he say it was when he was watching last week? 5:30 in the morning. I think he said he was
ridiculous.
watching at or something like that. Crazy stuff. And we're clearly important enough to be back here now. So we're doing something right. We're dragging in the stragglers.
So
Right.
Danny, I think before Liam joined us and you left, you had a point that you wanted to come back to.
Yes. What went wrong with I know we did touch on the O-line, and I get that, but specifically the play where God knows what happened with the formation. It was an illegal formation. Wasn't enough people on the line. Pitts got told to run from one side of the field to the other to get on the line. Didn't get on the line, and ultimately we give a foul away anyway.
It was just
where
basic
does
error,
that stem from?
It was
you go on, Cal.
No. It was just that it was watching it. It was I was sort of laughing to myself, like what's just happened. And it's basics, isn't it? Like even when Kirk said get on the line, he got near the line, but then still didn't get on it. But he knew he had to be on it, and then it was obviously just in his head. And it's one of them mistakes where further down the season you cannot be making them mistakes. That's the thing.
I just don't know what they called for him to not think that he was supposed to be there. I'm not even convinced it was on Pitts, and he might have just been the closest to someone to get out. I can't establish what was meant to be happening. That's the problem.
Well, there was a couple of daft moments, wasn't there? And it's at times like this where you just go, of all the amount of times you would have ran this through in drills, like if you think about when the tight end got in the way of the motion, got in the way of the snap,
yeah.
You know,
that was arguably worse, actually.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it's just like, and again, this is why it's stuff like that. I still don't take the point, and I'm going to hammer it home one more time. Sorry, Liam. That it's not about getting pointer snaps in preseason. It's about the execution of things, and and I noticed for every offensive play, we were doing a lot of motioning, and Kirk was guiding all of the motioning.
Yeah.
And the problem with it was he guided the kid in, and the guard tapped to see a snap the ball.
Yeah.
And it's like between those three things happening, it's just not synced up. 99 times out of 100, it's probably fine. But
yeah, because this split seconds in it. It literally just needed to be that much different, and none of that happens.
And I do think you kind of get to the point where it's just like a comedy of errors, isn't it? It's one of them things where it kind of felt like we were rattled.
Yeah.
To the point where we were making silly mistakes. And there's mistakes that are just daft. Right. They're just and I think again I'll go back to my original point that I started off the show with. Zach Robinson came in with a lot of hype around him, and we have not seen a great amount of variation and adjustment. And what we have seen is actually an offense that at times, if they lose their head, they start making really stupid mistakes. And they've got to shore that up. And if it's just one game, right? If it's just the game where you've got to get it out of your system, then fine, right? But I think if there's pressure on anyone right now, it, for me, solely lies on Zach Robinson's head. And I'm not saying that I've lost faith in him, but what I am saying is, don't think you were brave enough.
Yeah.
And I think that for me is where we have to almost look at these next two games and go, well, we might as well be brave, because actually, you know, nobody's given us a cat and hell's chance now. So actually, you know, let's start running some different stuff or playing some different stuff. And then I think we're going to get a bit of a real magnified view of what's going on with Kirk. Because if you can't, if you're going to go into the Eagles the same way you went into the Steelers, you might not have TJ Watt on causing problems, but as we just discussed, there's plenty of Eagles players who will cause us problems as well.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah. I think for me that part of this sort of strange decision, well, I don't know what you call it, just errors or looking uncomfortable, was Cousins. Oh, how old is he now? 30, whatever he is, 36. He's played like near enough all the snaps of his career. Certainly with the Vikings. I can't remember what he did at Washington, but certainly with the Vikings, he played under center, and now we've put him in a different formation near enough every single time. And that might be part of his Achilles or whatever, and it's counter against like TJ Watt, which clearly didn't go very well. But he's used to playing under center, and then he's playing a different role now. He's organising motion in a different way, and I think he probably a little bit uncomfortable with that. I don't know why we've gone with that. Obviously, it's Zach Robinson's style and whoever else is involved style, which is kind of what we're trying to implement. But don't know if you've got an experienced quarterback who's played under center for most snaps in the career that I can remember. Why not go under center with him? Why change it? We'll see if that changes throughout the season. I don't know. Maybe he'll get comfortable with it and it won't really matter. Maybe they'll start moving under center because he can't get comfortable. I don't know, but I just feel like you've got a guy who's done something well for so long. Does it make sense to ask him to do something different at this point of his career? I don't know.
And the thing I keep thinking is, right, if that is the case, you really probably should have scouted that out before you gave him $180 million.
Exactly. He played them all.
Because we know, right, for a fact that we've got him for at least the next 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So my message is clear. If 2 years is what we've got him for, at a minimum, you're going to have to start playing to his strengths, because we can't be doing that. And I'm saying that probably is more of a concern if things carry on the way they are. I still think that he makes a lot more throws on Sunday if he had 2 more seconds. Two more seconds, and it was 90% of the time it was always Watt that was causing the problems. It was either getting in front of him, getting to the it was so I don't want to dick on him too much. I
think any of the Penix calls are absolutely bonkers, because imagine throwing a rookie in that's not played a snap in the NFL, and then he had that O-line that were just falling apart in front of him. And yes, he might be a bit more mobile, and he might be a bit more likely to sling it early just because, nerves and first time around. But that wouldn't have fixed yesterday's problems.
No, I'd be interested to see.
That would not have won us the game.
No. I'm interested to see if in the next game or the games to come, Kirk Cousins starts playing more snaps under center. I think potentially it was not a tactical switch. I think they didn't trust his health in this first game, because obviously under center, even when you're handing the ball off, you've got to step back, which is the strain on your Achilles. And in that kind of area, you're stepping back. Play action has a similar motion. I can't remember a single play action pass we attempted. Kirk Cousins can do play action easily. He's got that game.
Yeah,
we didn't try that, and we didn't put him on the center where he had to do he had to drop back. We put him in shotgun formation so he could catch the ball and look forwards, so he didn't have to move.
Yeah,
and that to me says either that's just the tactics we're going with, or they're going, we're not quite sure about your Achilles yet, old sir. We're going to try and protect you.
So I'm gonna pose you a question. If that's the case, does number 9 come out the box for a couple of games?
I think that's the case, number 9 should have been in the box. I don't think he ever should have Cousins should have started.
Yeah, no. Listen, I know I'm not going to put you on this rant again. I know that's what you're thinking. But what I'm saying is, from a health point of view, if that is the case and they're worried about his Achilles,
I think you've got to do it with chest now, though, because if you bring in Penix now and he does a fine job, he has a decent season as a rookie.
I'm not advocating either way. I'm just posing the question.
Yeah, but to me, you cannot do that now. You've literally blown your load already, because if you bring him in, he does well.
It's a medical problem.
You've just got Cousins sat there for however long. Whereas if you just don't pull the trigger on that and go, oh no, Kurt's fine, he'll settle down, then Penix stays out of the limelight, doesn't get the opportunity for snaps, but therefore their decision to give Kirk that big contract doesn't look like a stupid decision if they keep him in.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's public eye, isn't it? Imagine the uproar. We know what this fan base can be like.
Yeah, I think we'll start seeing some different plays, in some different formations in the next couple of weeks, and I think we'll look back at that first game and see a change. And I think it could have been some uncertainty. He does have to test. If we're talking about his Achilles, he does have to test it. Like, he's going to have to do it. Like, that's the facts. And if it pops on a first play, then it does. But he's got to play his game, and if that's his game, he's got to be able to play it. And if he can't play it, he's not healthy.
Right, boys. We've got about 5, maybe 10 minutes left at a push. Mark's got somewhere to be, but I don't want to end the show on a negative note. And although we've been constructive and fair, we've not complimented many people. Landman had a game. Robinson looked pretty sharp. Ray had some plays in there. Simmons looked like he'd played snaps for us before. All pick a player each. Do your little thing. Who are we giving kudos to? Go on, Cal. You can have the first one.
I'm just gonna go with Bijan, just because of obviously he's been at this is his second year. He played well at times. He obviously got through the line of defense a few times, but didn't find that line after that to get through. But after, I don't know how many snaps, I don't know how many times he ran with the ball, to be fair, but he seemed obviously quite a few. But no, I'll go with him. I think he had a solid game for his first game this year.
There was that play, wasn't it, late on, and he sort of ran and cut from the outside, and he managed to gasp tackle him, but if he got past that guy, he would have been to the house. I agree, Carl. I think he did himself justice.
Liam, who's your man?
Yeah, I'm desperate to see those Bijan runs. Those big players. Like, he does everything well, doesn't he? Really desperate to see the big ones. I was desperate to say Darnell Mooney from when he first started with that pass. I was like, oh, he's here. He's turned up. I don't think he got a ball after that, but I was very excited when he caught that one. I thought, this is it now. He's on it. He's on for a big game. But I think I'll probably have to say Caden Ellis. I think he was just, he goes under the radar a lot. But again, he was just incredibly efficient, tons of tackles, just everywhere in that linebacker position, outside tackling runs. The amount of times he had to stop Harris and stuff like that, he just did a sterling job, like he tends to do on a pretty regular basis for us at the moment and last season.
Yeah. Tidy. Go on, Mark.
Oh, so ironically, one of my favorite ever football players was a Steeler, shockingly enough, and his name was Troy Polamalu. And I just need to give kudos out there to my guy Troy Anderson on that goal line stop.
Yeah,
where that would have been that would have made that scoreline look a lot more dramatic.
Yeah,
and he knew what they were going to do, and he hopped that line straight into Fields' dish before Fields could push his way through.
It was Nick Landman.
I was a Landman. Sorry, I thought it was Anderson.
They do look quite similar back there, to be fair.
Yeah. And that play just filled me with joy because Polamalu used to do that all the time. Like
it was beautiful, kind of that
short plays, just got to the line straight away and hopped, and it was beautiful. So I'm gonna give kudos to that. And also I think it's probably worth a mention that, you know, I can't believe I'm saying this, but when we think about that one play, right, where we did get the touchdown, right, that scheme that was drawn up to take Pitts round to the outside, completely open, you know, that to me gives me faith that they're putting Pitts in the positions he needs to be in.
Yeah.
On the flip side, concerned that he's doing a little bit of blocking there, and I think that was probably a needs must situation, especially.
Is that what you call it?
Needs to be rotation more there. I just don't think.
When we say the blocking tight end, it just seems wild to me, right? But whatever. And so I guess that was frustrating. But that one play, we've got to give kudos to Pitts there. He played it to a T, out in the corner of the end zone, wide open.
Literally just caught it like that. Just.
So I just want to, it's all been a bit doom and gloom on the offense, but I did want to sort of single out that play because that's the kind of stuff we need to be doing more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And before we wrap it up, I'll just rotate.
I had to do that just to let you have your moment.
There we go. So, thank you very much. On last week's show, I called him for Defensive Player of the Season. Year 10 for him, first ever long-term injury to that extent, of course. Coming off the back of that, and I just thought there's no way that he won't just cement our position. And what I actually said, Mark, because you might not have caught it, my justification was that he might not get the sacks, he might not get the hits, but he's just the gel that does all of the, just lets everybody else thrive. Boy, I was wrong. He did everything yesterday. He literally did everything.
And I know, and it's probably a bit stupid of him, but he felt like the leader of the aggression that we seen from that defense yesterday. Yeah. And when there was that little sort of fracas sort of late in the game, he wasn't taking anything from anybody. Do you know what I mean? And he, probably shouldn't have stuck his hand in the geezer's face, but it was one of them where I kind of it felt like that he was back. Do you know what I mean? And that defense under Ryan Nielsen without him was a shadow of it for myself. And I think we found out why yesterday.
Absolutely. And now most quarterback hits in franchise history as well. So that's a little hats off to him. That's a ridiculous feat to achieve. But I think, chaps, unless anyone's got any really pressing points that they want to touch before we go off, we've covered everything. We broke down our pain, talked Eagles. We've tried to pull a little bit of joy from that first appearance. So anybody got anything, or forever hold your peace?
Don't panic. Not yet.
No.
And we expected and we expected to lose the next two games anyway. So if we manage somehow to get out of these 3 games 1 and 2, right?
Yeah.
And again, I'm gonna hammer this home. Saints beat the Panthers.
Yeah.
Right. I watched one of their touchdowns where I can't remember who it was. That's how insignificant they are. One of the Saints guys was taking it to the house, and Carolina safety just stopped running, like 10 yards away from the end zone. Just stopped running.
Yeah.
Like, I am going to hammer home this point as well that Liam Bryce Young, he's in the mud, mate. He's Johnny Manziel style bust, if you ask me. But now,
oh my god!
And I think
they all are. I can't. That's what I'll give him. They all are.
And I think on the other side of that, Bucks had a convincing win against the Commanders. Commanders looked awful. Jaden Daniels did not want to throw that ball to anybody. So again, don't panic. There's a lot of ball to be played yet.
Yeah. Half the teams are 1-0 and the other half are 0-1. It's not that deep yet. It's not that deep. Start stressing when we're 5 and 6 in if we've not picked up, because then it's almost unrecoverable. But for this point, absolutely fine.
After week 5, that's when the season. That's when you
get a bit of a bearing.
You know when the analysts start pulling out the percentages of teams that will start 0-3 and how many make the playoffs. That's if that's what happens, then percentages are coming straight out.
Every single time.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah.
Well, with next week's game being Monday Night Football, but Tuesday morning football for us, is it? Yeah.
Kirk always does so well in prime time as well, doesn't he?
I know. God. Our show cannot be Monday because that would make no sense whatsoever. So we will have to get back to you all for what day we're going to do the show, because we don't even know yet, because we're just busy men. One of us here is a rock star, and that's why he couldn't make the show last week. So we're just nearly too insignificant for him at this point. But thank you all for watching. It has been a pleasure. I'm sorry we could not have a more exciting show with a win on the board, but it will come. And if it comes against the Eagles or the Chiefs, you won't even remember who the Steelers are. You'll be saying, "What's the Steelers?" So it doesn't matter, does it? It's not that deep.
That's true.
But I suppose it's only right to do the final bow out and the first one of the season, Mark. Game week 1, 0-1. Thank you everyone for watching. Sign us off.
Guys, you can find us on all platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It has been a pleasure, ladies and gents. We will catch you next week.